You have been told your whole life to eat more vegetables, more greens, more color on your plate. And for most of your life, that was exactly the right advice. But here's something most doctors never take the time to explain. After 60, that advice is dangerously incomplete. Because after 60, your body has changed in ways that make certain vegetables that were perfectly healthy at 40, actively work against you, against your kidneys, against your thyroid, against the joints you're trying to protect. And at the same time, there are 3 specific vegetables that become more powerful for you after 60 than at any other point in your life. Vegetables that protect your brain, fight cancer at the cellular level, and rebuild your gut microbiome from the inside out. In the next 14 minutes, I am going to show you exactly which 3 vegetables to be more careful about and which 3 to start eating like your health depends on it. I am going to explain the specific biological changes behind this. And I am going to give you a practical plan you can take to the grocery store this week. I have spent over 2 decades in health and aging research. What I am sharing today is not a generalized wellness tip. It is science most people never hear until something has already gone wrong. Before we go further, drop a comment right now with just your age, nothing else. I want to see who is watching this because what I am about to share applies very differently depending on whether you are 62, 72, or 82. And if you eat raw spinach regularly in salads, smoothies, as a daily green, add the word raw to your comment. You will understand exactly why in about 3 minutes. Here is a scenario playing out in kitchens across this country. Every single morning, a 68-year-old woman has made a real commitment to her health. Every morning, she blends a large raw spinach smoothie. Every afternoon, she snacks on raw kale or broccoli. She has been doing this for 2 years. Her doctors never told her anything different. But over those same 2 years, she has noticed creeping fatigue she cannot explain, a mental fog that hits in the afternoon, mild joint stiffness she keeps blaming on the weather. She assumes she is simply getting older. She is not simply getting older. What nobody told her is that 2 of the foods she eats every day are quietly compounding 2 biological vulnerabilities that increase specifically with age. Her kidneys are processing certain compounds more slowly than they did 15 years ago. Her thyroid is more sensitive to interference than it was at 45. The vegetables did not change. Her body did. Research published over the past decade is clear on this. The biological changes of aging demand a more precise approach to what we eat. Most physicians are not having this conversation, and that gap between what the evidence shows and what people are being told is affecting the health of millions of older adults every day. Now, if you are someone who values understanding the why behind the numbers, not just being told what to do, what I am about to explain will give you a completely different framework. 3 specific biological changes are happening in your body right now that change how you process food, including vegetables. The first is kidney filtration capacity. Research published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society has documented this consistently. After age 60, average kidney filtration capacity declines by 40 to 50% compared to young adulthood. Your labs might still look normal, but behind the scenes, certain compounds that a younger body cleared without effort are now accumulating. The second is thyroid sensitivity. Your thyroid gland becomes more vulnerable to interference as you age. Thyroid hormone production can decrease naturally, and certain compounds in food can disrupt it far more easily after 60 than at 40. Subclinical hypothyroidism, where the thyroid underperforms without appearing obviously abnormal on standard tests, affects an estimated 20% of adults over 60. Most of those people have no idea. The third is what scientists call inflammaging. That is not a typo. It describes the low-grade chronic inflammation that increases in virtually everyone as they age. Inflammaging is a documented driver of Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, joint destruction, and cancer. What you eat either suppresses that process or feeds it. These are not small differences. They demand a completely different approach. And yet the guidelines most people follow were written without accounting for them. Let us start with the 3 vegetables to be more careful about. The first is going to surprise you because it sits at the top of nearly every superfood list ever published. Number 1 on the caution list is raw spinach. And I want to be precise here. You wake up motivated, you load a generous handful of raw spinach into the blender, add some fruit, drink it on the way out the door. You feel good about that choice. Leafy greens, iron, folate, antioxidants. You are doing everything right. This is completely normal. Millions of people do exactly this. And here's what almost none of them have ever been told. Raw spinach contains oxalic acid, one of the highest concentrations of oxalate found in any vegetable, approximately 970 milligrams per 100 grams. In a body with fully functioning kidneys, oxalate is processed and cleared efficiently. But remember the 40 to 50% decline in kidney filtration. When your kidneys cannot clear oxalate as efficiently, it begins to bind with calcium in your bloodstream and form calcium oxalate crystals. Think of it like hard water buildup inside a pipe. Over years, those deposits narrow the pipe, reduce flow, and damage the system. That is what repeated high oxalate exposure does to kidney tubules after 60. Research published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that older adults who regularly consumed high oxalate vegetables showed up to a 30% higher risk of kidney function decline. And oxalate also binds to magnesium and zinc in your gut before they can be absorbed. Two minerals already commonly deficient in adults over 60 and critical for brain function, immune health, and muscle performance. Be completely honest right now. How many times this week have you eaten raw spinach in a salad, a smoothie, or straight from the container? Comment the number below. That number tells you exactly how much mineral blocking and kidney strain you may have been unknowingly accepting. The fix. Cooking spinach reduces its oxalate content by 30 to 50%. Steam it, saute it in olive oil, or wilt it into eggs. Limit to twice a week cooked. For daily greens, rotate to arugula, watercress, or romaine, all far lower in oxalate. Now the second vegetable on the caution list, and this one directly challenges something celebrated everywhere in health culture right now. Number 2 is raw cruciferous vegetables consumed in large daily amounts. Raw kale, raw broccoli, raw bok choy, raw Brussels sprouts. Celebrated across wellness culture, but if you are over 60 and consuming large amounts raw every single day, you may be slowly suppressing one of the most critical hormone systems in your body. This is completely normal for health-conscious people over 60. And here is what almost none of them have ever been told. Cruciferous vegetables contain compounds called glucosinolates. In the body, these convert to goitrogens, compounds that interfere with thyroid peroxidase, the enzyme essential for your thyroid to produce T3 and T4. Think of thyroid peroxidase as the key that starts your metabolic engine. Goitrogens, consumed in large raw amounts daily, are like gradually bending that key. The engine still starts, but it turns over sluggishly. Research in the journal Thyroid showed that consuming more than 150 grams of raw cruciferous vegetables per day consistently reduces the thyroid's ability to take up iodine by as much as 25%. Without adequate iodine uptake, hormone production falls, because subclinical hypothyroidism already affects 20% of adults over 60. Adding large amounts of raw goitrogens daily compounds a problem that may already be developing. The fatigue, brain fog, mild depression, and weight gain most people chalk up to getting older, those are exactly the symptoms of an underperforming thyroid. Be completely honest right now. How many times this week have you had raw kale, raw broccoli, or raw cabbage in large amounts? Comment yes if this is a regular daily habit, because that pattern tells you whether this is a variable worth addressing in your own body. The fix. Heat destroys approximately 90% of goitrogenic compounds. Roast your broccoli, steam your Brussels sprouts, stir fry your bok choy. You preserve virtually all cancer-fighting compounds while eliminating almost all thyroid disrupting effect. Keep raw servings under half a cup per day. If you are being treated for a thyroid condition, have this conversation with your doctor. Now, the third item on the caution list, this one comes with an important qualifier that makes it different from the first two. Number 3 on the caution list is canned tomatoes, specifically for people over 60 who already have joint pain, inflammatory arthritis, or any autoimmune condition. That group represents a very large portion of Americans over 60. You pull a can of diced tomatoes off the shelf. You have used them for years in soups, stews, sauces. Never thought twice. Here is what almost none of those people have ever been told. Tomatoes contain compounds called lectins and solanine. In most people with a healthy gut lining, these pass through without incident. But intestinal permeability, leaky gut, increases with age. The tight junctions between cells lining your gut loosen over time. Think of it like a mesh fence with gradually widening holes. Compounds that used to bounce off the fence now pass through it and trigger immune responses. A 2021 study in Nutrients found that higher nightshade lectin intake was associated with elevated TNF-alpha and IL-6, two primary drivers of systemic inflammation, specifically in older adults with rheumatoid arthritis. And canned tomatoes carry a particularly concentrated exposure. The acidity combined with the chemical lining of many cans amplifies both the lectin load and additional inflammatory burden simultaneously. Be completely honest right now. If you have joint pain or any inflammatory condition, how often are canned tomatoes appearing in your meals this week? Comment the number. That frequency tells you you whether this is a meaningful variable in your own inflammation load. The fix: if you have joint pain or an inflammatory condition, remove canned tomatoes for 4 weeks and track your symptoms. Switch to fresh tomatoes and cooking. Consider removing the skin and seeds, which carry the highest solanine concentration. If you have none of those conditions, enjoy fresh tomatoes freely. Now, we have covered what to moderate. That is the important foundation. But what comes next is where this conversation gets genuinely exciting. Number 1 on the ad list is beets. And if you care about keeping your brain sharp and well supplied with blood flow as you age, this one deserves your full attention. You walk past beets at the grocery store. Maybe you have had them once pickled. You keep walking. That decision is costing your brain something measurable. Beets are extraordinarily rich in dietary nitrates. When you eat them, bacteria in your mouth and gut convert those nitrates into nitric oxide, the molecule your blood vessel walls use to relax and dilate. Think of it like a signal telling every blood vessel to open wider. In a body over 60, that signal naturally weakens. Beets restore it directly. A landmark study published in the journal Hypertension measured cerebral blood flow in older adults after consuming high nitrate beet supplements. The result, blood flow to the frontal lobe, the area most associated with executive function and the earliest stages of cognitive decline, increased by 16%, 16% more blood reaching the most vulnerable part of your aging brain. From a vegetable, a 2023 study in Nutrients following 284 adults over 65 for 24 weeks found those consuming beet-derived nitrates regularly showed a 19% reduction in circulating CRP, a primary marker of systemic inflammation. Be completely honest right now. When was the last time you ate beets? Comment never, sometimes, or often. That tells you how much of this brain protective benefit you have been leaving on the table. The fix: roasted beets are simple. Cut, drizzle with olive oil, wrap in foil, roast at 200 degrees for 45 minutes. Pre-cooked beets are available in most produce sections. Beet juice, 240 milliliters, gives you the same nitrate benefit. Aim for 4 to 5 servings per week. One note: beets will turn your urine pink or red. Completely harmless. Just the pigment passing through. Now, the second vegetable on the ad list, most people walk past it without a second glance. Number 2 on the ad list is broccoli sprouts, not mature broccoli. The tiny thread-like sprouts from broccoli seeds germinated for just 4 or 5 days. And the distinction matters more than most people realize. You buy mature broccoli, roast it, feel good about that. You have never given the small container of broccoli sprouts a second glance. They look insubstantial. Here's what almost none of the people walking past them have ever been told. Research from Johns Hopkins University, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, found that broccoli sprouts contained 50 to 100 times the concentration of sulforaphane compared to mature broccoli. Think of it like the difference between a glass of orange juice and a highly concentrated dose of the same compound. Sulforaphane is recognized as one of the most potent natural anti-cancer compounds identified in any food source. It works by activating the NRF2 pathway, your body's master switch for cellular defense. When sulforaphane activates NRF2, your cells ramp up their own antioxidant production, including glutathione. DNA repair mechanisms are enhanced, inflammation is suppressed at the cellular level. Studies in cancer prevention research have linked sulforaphane specifically to reduced risk of colon, breast, and prostate cancer, the 3 cancers most common in Americans over 60. And emerging research shows sulforaphane crosses the blood-brain barrier and directly reduces the neuroinflammation, driving accelerated cognitive aging. Be completely honest right now. Have you ever bought broccoli sprouts? Comment yes or no. Because if the answer is no, you have been leaving one of the most accessible cellular defense tools off your plate for years. The fix: 2 to 3 tablespoons per day is the target. Add them to a salad, on eggs, in a sandwich. Mild, peppery flavor most people find easy. If your store does not carry them, grow them at home in 5 days with a mason jar, a mesh lid, and $3 of seeds. Soak overnight, rinse twice daily, harvest on day 4 or 5. Now, the final vegetable on the ad list: cheap, available everywhere, working simultaneously on 3 separate systems in your aging body. Number 1 on the ad list, the single vegetable I would put at the top of any after 60 protocol is purple cabbage. Less than $2 for a head that lasts a week. Available in every grocery store, most people walk past it and reach for the green variety. They do not think of it as medicine. That is a significant oversight. That deep purple color is your first clue. It comes from pigments called anthocyanins, and anthocyanins in the context of aging biology are doing something remarkable across 3 separate systems simultaneously. First, your gut. One of the primary drivers of inflammation is a deteriorating gut microbiome. As we age, we lose certain keystone bacteria that regulate inflammation, immune function, and brain chemistry. One of the most important is Akkermansia muciniphila, increasingly identified in research as a longevity-associated bacterium. Higher levels are found consistently in healthy centenarians. Lower levels are associated with increased inflammation, metabolic disease, and cognitive decline. A 2022 study in Frontiers in Nutrition found the anthocyanins in purple cabbage specifically promote the growth of Akkermansia muciniphila. This vegetable is literally feeding the bacteria most associated with longer, healthier aging. Second, your brain. Those same anthocyanins cross the blood-brain barrier and work directly in neural tissue, reducing oxidative stress and protecting neurons. Research in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry confirmed this mechanism. Purple cabbage is one of a very small number of dietary sources working simultaneously on gut health, systemic inflammation, and direct neural protection. Third, your liver. Purple cabbage activates phase 2 liver detoxification enzymes, your liver's machinery for neutralizing carcinogens before they damage DNA. When cooked, the goitrogenic effect is neutralized. What remains is this protective activation alone. Be completely honest right now. How often does purple cabbage appear on your plate? Weekly, monthly, or never? Comment your honest answer, because that frequency tells you whether the bacteria most associated with longevity in your gut are getting what they need. The fix: saute in olive oil with garlic. Roast until the edges caramelize. But the most powerful preparation is fermented. Sauerkraut or kimchi made from purple or red cabbage multiplies anthocyanin bioavailability and adds live probiotic cultures on top of the prebiotic benefit. Half a cup cooked 5 to 7 times per week, a quarter cup fermented daily. Less than $2 a week. If you have been eating large raw spinach salads, daily raw cruciferous vegetables, and canned tomatoes for years, thinking you were doing exactly the right thing, I want you to hear something important. It is not your fault. Nobody told you. The advice you received was not wrong. It was incomplete. It was built for a 40-year-old body and applied universally. That is a systemic gap, not a personal failure. Inflammatory markers can come down. Gut microbial populations shift meaningfully within weeks of dietary change. What we discussed today is not a sentence, it is a starting point. After 60, your kidneys, thyroid, and gut lining function differently. The same food prepared differently has dramatically different biological effects. The vegetables most heavily marketed to older adults are not always the ones the science is pointing toward. And beets, broccoli sprouts, and purple cabbage are doing things for the aging body that most people are never told about. You are no longer a passive recipient of general health advice. You are an informed person who can make more precise choices. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Let me give you specific steps starting tonight. First, look at your refrigerator right now. If raw spinach is a daily staple, rotate it out this week. Swap to arugula, romaine, or watercress. If you love spinach, cook it and limit it to twice a week. Second, audit your cruciferous vegetable habit. If you are eating large amounts of raw kale, raw broccoli, or raw cabbage daily, shift to cooked preparations. You lose none of the cancer-fighting benefit and eliminate the thyroid disrupting effect. Third, if you have joint pain or any inflammatory condition, remove canned tomatoes for 4 weeks. Switch to fresh. Track your joint symptoms honestly. Fourth, buy beets this week. Roasted, pre-cooked, or as juice. 4 servings this week. Put it on your list now. Fifth, find broccoli sprouts at your store or order sprouting seeds online. 2 tablespoons daily, added to whatever you are already eating. Sixth, add purple cabbage to your next shopping list. Saute it or buy naturally fermented red sauerkraut and add a quarter cup daily. And finally, have an informed conversation with your doctor. Not a routine checkup. Ask specifically, how is my kidney filtration tracking? Has my thyroid been assessed recently? And what inflammatory markers are we monitoring? You deserve a doctor who treats you as a thinking adult. Drop a comment right now saying prize eyes. If this gave you something real today, if it answered questions you have been sitting with, I want to see that word in the comments. It tells me you are ready to approach your health with the specificity your body after 60 actually deserves. Now think of one specific person you love, a parent, a partner, a close friend, someone who is making a raw spinach smoothie every morning thinking they are doing something great for their body. Send them this video right now, not later, right now. That single action might be the most meaningful health decision you make today. Not for yourself, but for them. Subscribe to this channel. My mission is to give you honest, research-grounded health information that most people only find out about after something has already gone wrong. You deserve to know it before that happens. In my next video, I am going to show you 3 fruits that work like precision medicine for the aging heart, and 2 that silently spike inflammation without warning. You will not want to miss it. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice. Dietary changes should be individualized based on your complete medical history, current health status, and all relevant factors. Never make significant changes to your diet without first consulting your healthcare provider. The information presented reflects current published research, but should not replace a thorough evaluation by a qualified medical professional.